Welcome to the Money Talk podcast. Just so you are aware, this is live. If you're watching it after the fact, that's fine. That's perfectly okay. Today, it's going to be a little shorter than usual. I am chasing a pretty huge ride challenge bonus this week for over $400. I was going to take over 120 rides before Friday. And I started this morning and I worked last night and I got to keep going. I got to keep moving or else I'll fall behind and I can't have that. At the beginning of the podcast, we always talk about how much money I made in the previous week. And then we talk about whatever news is circulating or whatever I got going on. And we always go through the comments. So if you have any questions, just make sure you leave a comment in between each section. I always respond to the comments. And if you're new here, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. I do my best to show you guys what I'm doing as far as money goes and how I do it. And I try to be as accurate as possible. If you think there's something I can do to be more accurate, or if you don't believe me, if you think I'm lying and making things up, please share with me how I can be more truthful with you, because that's all I really want to do. So we're gonna start with Uber, right? The first thing I do is I show how much I make in the apps, and then I take you over to my spreadsheet to break down the actual numbers. So here it is with Uber. Didn't do too much Uber last week. Only I my city I consider it to be a Lyft city, where most of the good things that happen come from Lyft. But there are scenarios where taking Uber is pretty good, or if it's too slow on Lyft, I'll run both apps and take whatever pops up first. But if you see me not doing Uber a lot, it's because I'm having a good time on Lyft. But I do try to do both. So Wednesday, we didn't have too much going on, 30 minutes online, and we made $14.76. Not great, not bad. If you were to average it out to an hourly rate, it'd be a little less than $30 an hour, which, if you go by some YouTubers, it's not a lot of money. But I think that's a good middle ground. I think $30 an hour that's when I'm happy. $25 an hour is when I start to feel like I might be wasting my time. But at $30 an hour, I'm pretty satisfied. So this is Lyft, where I've been doing most of the driving last week. Tuesday, just not a great day. We did $38. Just it was a slow day, is what I'm saying. So $30, 35 cents for about 2 hours. Only took 4 rides. On Wednesday, January 10th, we did $158 over 8 rides. Still a little slow. Tuesday we had the storm, so I pretty much stayed home. And then it wasn't worth it. The winds were blowing really, really hard, and the students weren't even out, and to me, it just wasn't worth it at the time. Wednesday, first day of classes, I thought it'd be a little busier. We did some morning routes and some night routes. We did 158, 8 hours, pretty much 9 hours, 3 tips. Tips are very bad that day. Scrolling up, Thursday, January 11th, we did 4 hours, 43 minutes, $180.81 for 5 hours. That was pretty good. That's a pretty good start. I'm not gonna do the math in my head. I am tired. I have been driving a lot, and I've just been sleeping and waking up, and I don't want to miss my live streams. So Friday, things are getting a little better. $183 for another 6 hours. Students are back. It's still cold, so not a lot of them are going out. But this is the slow period in my city, and I'll take these numbers. These numbers aren't too bad for it being slow in my city. And I'm in Charleston, if you guys don't know. And so this is Saturday. We did 29 rides over 8 hours and 38 minutes. That's pretty good. We averaged more than let's see what that averages out to be. I'm gonna bring my calculator out. So my calculator, we did 8 hours and 38. So we're gonna call it 8.5. So 29 rides divided by 8.5. That should give us the amount of rides we did per hour. So I did 3.4 rides per hour. So knowing how many rides you can do per hour in your market is pretty important. It lets you to be able to think about your ride challenges. Like, all right, I got this crazy ride challenge. The one I have for this week is 145. Is it 145? No, 120. So it's for 120 rides, and I have 4 days to do it. So we divide that by 4. So I have to do 30 a day. And if I work, let's call it 12 hours a day, then we see I need to do 2.5 hours per day. Now, I might not be able to hit the same amount of rides on a weekday as I would on a weekend, but just knowing what you're capable of doing enables you to plan on if something is or isn't possible. Actually, my latest video I posted talks about how to like break down if a ride challenge is or isn't possible. So moving on to the last day on Sunday, I did 19 rides in 5 hours and 11 minutes. I think that's pretty sweet. Let me see. We'll just do what? 19 divided by 5. So 3.8 rides per hour. That's pretty dope. I uh I really wanted to get these rides done before 11 so I can get the ride challenge and then I could jump back on the road. So actually after I did this, I went home, I got some dinner, I slept for about 4 or 5 hours, and then I woke back up for 5 a.m., woke up a little late, and then I drove, I think up until like 10, 11, came home, slept, and I'm here with you guys. So I'm out here working. I am out here working. You can disagree with the hustle, but you can't disagree with the fact that I'm actually out here doing it. All right, so now we can look at the spreadsheet. This is a spreadsheet I made. I use it to track like everything. You automatically put in your values, and it just automatically tells you what's going on. So you can see my mileage. I have it separated based off of personal and business because that's how the IRS wants it. So I try to make this as IRS compliant. This is for January 24th. You can see my starting mileage. Started at 125,683, and I'm currently at 128,175. I've driven 2,394 miles. Let me see if I can zoom in for you guys. Yeah, it's just a little bit. My personal mileage is 98. So in order to accurately track your mileage, you cannot, unless you're doing considerable accounting, that those are the IRS words, at your home, you can't put that you started at home as business mileage. You need to leave your home, either go to the spot that you would normally like. For me, I leave my home, I go downtown, and once I'm downtown, that's when my personal mileage ends. Or if I go to the gas station, right? If going to the gas station is a for business reasons is a business expense. So usually when I'm coming home, I'll go to the gas station, I'll fill my gas tank up, and then I'll use personal mileage from gas station to go home because going to the gas station was business mileage. So that's something you need to be aware of, just in case you're ever audited. I didn't know this. My first year, a commenter reached out to me and corrected me, and I'm extremely thankful that he did, because if he didn't do that, then this mileage tracker that I made wouldn't have been IRS compliant, and it's important for me that it is. So if we move over, we can see our weekly totals. I'm gonna go through the monthly summary, but am gonna let you know there is a Lyft referral that's in this. I'm gonna go through the summary once, take the Lyft referral out because I don't think that's fair to you guys. I get Lyft referrals if someone clicks my referral link in the description, and I don't. When it comes to like analyzing numbers, I just think it's unfair if I put my Lyft referrals in there. So the total with the Lyft referrals is 300. Sorry, 300. I'm still tired, so I'm a little. It's gonna be like this for a little bit. The total is $3,645.35 over the course of 82 hours and 27 minutes. This includes everything from January 1st up until now. That works out to a per hour of $44.21 with the mileage of $2,394. I'm gonna move over. So that breaks down to a per mile of $1.52, and a per expenses. I have $390.94. That's not the full story of my expenses. At the end of the month, the last week of the month, I am going to put in all my expenses. I decided to do it. I decided it. I decided to do it that way at the beginning of the month, but I now realize that's a mistake. So for February, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put all of my monthly recurring expenses, the things I know that I have to pay every month, into the spreadsheet before I even make any money. So that way, when I look at the spreadsheet, I know how much money I need to make at minimum to at least cover my expenses. So I'll do that next month. But for the sake of this month and for the sake of YouTube, I'm gonna keep you guys in mystery. So you can see the per mile. So this section up here, I need to label it a little better. It's really just for expenses. So $390.94 so far in expenses. $4 for air. I have a leak. I have a very slow leak that I need to fix. Gas is $210. And so we'll get to the gas in a second. Maintenance 176. My check engine light popped up. I brought it to the dealership just so that they could tell me what's wrong with it, and that so that I could see if I could fix it myself. And I think I'm gonna end up fixing it myself. It's the mass airflow sensor, and I think based off of the video I seen, I think I can fix that myself. But this is my favorite part of the spreadsheet. So it calculates your mileage write-off. You're based off of the 67 cents per mile, I think it is, 2024. And it tells you your taxable income. After doing some math, you can put in your estimated tax rate. And then it shows you your estimated taxes, which for me is $204.14. And then it shows you your true net. So this is after expenses and taxes. My true net is $3,050.27. I know a lot of people always jump in the comment thinking I spend like half of my income on expenses when it's closer to like 10%, right? So my true net is 3,050. And so about $600 out of the $3,000 that I've made so far this year, about $600 is going towards expenses and taxes, estimated taxes. So my true hourly would be 37, but these numbers will change a bit once we take out the Lyft referral. So let's go ahead and do that. And you can see kind of what I'm rocking with. So you put in your dailies and then your time, and then it automatically tells you what you're making per hour. So this is like New Year's. This is not normal stuff. This is normal for New Year's, but this is not overall normal values. 34, that's a good night. I have bad nights, right? So I'm not gonna sit here and say, oh, just because I'm making money doesn't mean I don't have bad days or slow days. Like I said, it's slow in my market right now. We're doing $20 an hour. I haven't averaged $20 an hour in a very long time. Another 1976 an hour, 21.33 an hour. This was good. 38.28. $19, $18, 38, 31, 44, 37, 29. So there's some good hours in there, and there's bad hours. So it's just that's how it is sometimes. There are ebbs and flows to it. You have to know your market very well, and sometimes I just push through. I don't quit just because I'm not making the greatest amount of profit, because my goal isn't just profit. Profit is important, but you still have to make enough money. I'm trying to pay off almost $100,000 in debt this year. And so sometimes if I just want to have that high dollar amount, I have to suffer through the bad times. It's just what it is. No shame in it. So without the referral fee in there, you can see my total is now $2,725. Hours don't change. My per hour is still 33.05. Not still, but it's gross. That's a pretty good number. I'm not mad at that. It could be higher, but it's slow season right now, so I'm okay with that. The per mile dropped down to $1.14. So even without the referral bonus, I'm still averaging over $1 per mile, which apparently that's just the minimum now. But I will say the average rideshare driver makes about 80 cents per mile. That's based off of data. And if you're doing average or better and you're doing it in a car that's not expensive to maintain, you're okay. If you're doing 80 cents per mile in a Prius, you're doing better than someone in a BMW who's doing 80 cents per mile. So because your car costs less. So it's not black and white, but just something to think about. My expenses wouldn't change. My expense per hour changes. So for every hour that I'm driving, with the current expenses, this will probably go up a little higher. I'm doing $4.74. And then my expenses per mile is 16. So these numbers will go higher once I add in the rest of my expenses during the last week of January. And if you see, my mileage write-off is 1,600. My taxable income is now $1,121, 10% rate. My estimated taxes is now $100.12, $112.14. My true net is $2,222.27. And my true hourly is $26.95. So $26.95 after taxes and expenses, I think it's pretty good, pretty decent. We're still in a slow period. Not a like if you're a W-2 worker, you probably have to work like a $30 an hour job to be considered 26 an hour after taxes. And I think that's kind of weird. I think it's important for drivers to know the gross and net after taxes, but something that we don't do is like when we as like humans talk about working an actual job, and we talk to like the people we know, we always tell them the amount we make gross, right? We say, oh, we make $50,000 gross, or we make $25 an hour gross. But as soon as it comes to rideshare, we're always expected to talk in net, which I think is okay. So it's always important to differentiate that the expectation of numbers changes from independent contractor to employee. And you should always in your brain, if you tell someone you made $26 net and they say, oh, well, I make $26 uh, working my job, you just be like, yo, is that gross? Is that before taxes? Because after taxes, they're probably making less money than you. And they're going to pay significant, an employee that makes $26 an hour gross is going to pay significantly more in taxes than an independent contractor, a rideshare driver that makes that same amount net. So that's something you just should think about. So now that we've seen how much money I've made, we are going to start looking at how much money are other drivers in my market making, and then how much money are other drivers in other markets making. I think I'm going to pull the top 5 cities from my YouTube channel and look in those cities to see how much those drivers are making. And there's an app that can do this for you. And this is the app. Why is it gray? I don't know why it's so gray. But so this is for Charleston. This is my market. And don't want you guys think I'm showing off. I know that people will think I am, and I don't really care about those people. But it's important to make comparisons, and I want you guys to understand what my numbers are so that we can compare it to what everyone else's numbers are. Not because, again, I'm not showing off, but I want to highlight that strategy does matter. Like it really does. So people like to say that my market's great, fabulous, and I think it sometimes it is, but I don't think my market's top 15. I don't think Charleston is top 15 at all. I'll show you why in a second, but here you can see your average Uber driver in my, so the way this app works, it you download it to your phone and then you give it access to your apps. So it's not like people are fudging in these numbers. These numbers are pulled directly from people's phones. So I don't know what they're doing, but people in Charleston average $19 an hour, which is down only 3%. That's really low, right? On my bad day, I was doing about that. But where are your good days? And now I wasn't even doing Uber. On Lyft, people are averaging $16 an hour, which is down 5%. I never even touched $16 an hour. So I don't know what these guys are doing. I don't know what time of day these guys are working. I don't know what these must be the airport people. This has to be the people sitting at the airport. It has to be. It just has to be. I don't think I could try to make that much money. I could try, and I don't think I'd be successful in lowering my income that much. Maybe one day I'll have to just sit at the airport, do an airport video. I think that's what I'll have to do, but this is really low, right? You see Uber Eats $16 an hour, DoorDash $15 an hour, Spark $43 an hour. A little misleading. Consider that you kind of have to, and that's just because the leaderboard resets on Sunday night. So this is just based off of what I've done this morning. But let's go to the past week. And it says I'm number 2 here, but if you look at the numbers, I'm actually, I think I'm number 1, right? $1,273. And the next driver behind me made $848. The next driver after that, $705. The number 3 driver made $698. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go from Charleston. We're going to select all metros. And now you can see that out of everyone that has this app on their phone in America, I'm ranked 222nd. And now we can see a list of the rankings for all the other drivers. The number 1 driver, Visalia, California, never heard of it, made almost $3,000 last week. Number 2 driver, Los Angeles, $2,675. Number 3 driver, and one of the best places to be a rideshare driver, New York. That's where I'm from. $2,656. I'm from Queens. Spartanburg, that's close to me. Not that close, but a couple hours from me. $2,443. That's nice. Shout out to you, repping South Carolina. We got Salt Lake City, $2,443. Denver, $2,335. And we got Los Angeles like in here repeatedly. New York, Denver, San Francisco, Houston, Texas. Let me tell you a story about Houston, Texas. I got into it with a commenter a little bit. Very analytical person. I like interacting with him. He saw my every week I put up my numbers. He saw my numbers. He said, "Man, you must really be in a good market." And at the time of the post, I was ranked number one in my market at $800. And then when he said his market is Houston, so I use this right. I can scroll up. I can pick the metro. We're gonna scroll down to Houston. They need to make like a search function because this scrolling thing is not the move. Did I pass it? A B C D E. Here we go. HOU Houston. Right. So at the time, I told him he was just giving me numbers about how the rides aren't that great and Houston's a bad market, and I had to tell him, listen, right now, this is on Friday. Right now, there are 12 other drivers in Houston that have made more money than me, and I am the top driver in my market. So it's while these numbers, like they're raw numbers, right? We don't know what kind of car they're driving. We don't know what their strategy is. There are things that we can't figure out. But when I look at the raw data, it signifies to me that if I were a driver in Houston, my earnings potential would be higher than it is in Charleston. And I think he deleted his comment, and that's okay. His first comment was kind of to justify why that can't be correct using his own numbers. And I come across this a lot. It's like the reason I use this app is to show people that there are people in their market that are doing something. We don't exactly know what that something is that's making them more money than my viewer, right? And I want to challenge you guys. If you're using this app, which is in the description below, I think I have it under rank checker, but if you're using this app and you don't think you're making enough money with these gig apps, and you see someone making more money than you, I want you to figure out why. I want you to start evaluating your strategy and figuring out why is it that someone else who lives in the same exact city I'm in doing better than me. Now, it could be their car, but guess what? There are people with XLs in my market, there are people with Uber Blacks in my market, or whatever the high tier is. I drive basic Uber X and basic Lyft, and I'm still the number one. So I'm not saying that you can do that in your market and still be number one. What I am saying is you need to figure out if that's the reason why. Is it because they have an XL? Is it because they're driving Uber Black? Or is it because they're working nights? They're doing the airport runs in the morning. They're waking up early. They're not going out during traffic time. You need to. That's why I love this app. It gives us some numbers that Uber and Lyft aren't sharing with us. Look at this. I think they said I made what 1,200. So you have 10 people who are making similar to what I made or better. And then you have what 16 people, and this is just the people who have the app. This doesn't account for everyone, right? So there are the possibility that there are more people on this list making more money exists. That's true of Charleston too. So I really want you guys to be aware of it. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna pull up my YouTube numbers. That's not what I want. Let's look at chat. Oh, all right. Let me finish this. I'm gonna pull up my YouTube numbers. We're gonna look at the different markets, and then we are going to see what the top 5 viewers on my channel, what their markets are making. Hold on, give me a second. I wasn't planning to do this part. All right, so we got a fresh tab. Let me move it off to the side. Studio. Give me a second, guys. I gotta get to my analytics. We need to go to more metrics. Cities. There we go. All right. I'm almost done. Beautiful. Okay, so let's get this over here. All right, so this is my back end on YouTube. I will zoom in here. All right, so this is good. So this is based off of the last 28 days, but let's do lifetime. So since I've been my channel, so the number one viewership that I get is from New York City. The number two is from Los Angeles. Number three is from Chicago. Number four is from Toronto. Okay, Canada, I see you. I've been intentionally sharing Canadian news stories, and I think it has helped increase my presence. And then look, here's Houston. Houston comes in at number five. Maybe we'll do Atlanta. Maybe we'll do Dallas. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see if we get to those. So let's start from the bottom, right? We're gonna start from Houston. But we already did Houston. We saw that. We saw how much money Houston people are making. Now, if you're watching and you're from Houston and you're struggling and you don't think you think you're the best driver in the market and no one can out earn you, but you see that other drivers are making more than you have homework tonight. You need to go and figure out why there are people in your market making more money than you. I saw someone leave a comment saying sometimes what I just said makes them feel inadequate. That is not my goal. I am very process oriented. Um, when I see a problem, my mind jumps to solution, not to the emotional appeal. And I'm bad at that stuff. So if I'm not conveying my words correctly, I apologize. But just know that my intention is not to make you feel bad about yourself, but it's to ask you to confront reality. Why are drivers in your market making more than you? It's not a rhetorical question. I'm not trying to make you feel bad. I want you to figure out why, because money is actually on the line. So we've already done Houston. I don't think we can do Toronto. I don't know if um if this is international. Oh my god, T, I had to scroll all the way to the bottom. This, oh my god, this is so bad. I'm gonna email them about this, and I'm going to include this video. So hi, makers of this app. I'm scrolling while I'm talking to you because I have to go to T, and this is ridiculous. Please put a search function in here. Great app. I like that you. Okay, we're in T's. Where am I going? Toronto. That's TO. So yeah, it doesn't look like Canadian cities are here. So then my next question or suggestion is, can you please include Toronto? But because Toronto's not in here, right? Let's do Atlanta. And Atlanta's at the top. Hopefully I don't have to scroll. I'm just gonna close this in hopes that it makes it so that, yeah. Good. AT, Athens, Georgia. That's where Georgia State is. Not state, but Georgia, the college. Atlanta. All right, so Atlanta. I've seen people in my comments saying you can't make money in Atlanta either. So the top driver in Atlanta made $1,848. Again, we don't know how many hours these guys are working. Um, the second number two made $1,588 last week. Number three made $1,428 last week. Let's go back a couple weeks. Let's just see what they're like averaging out there. So this looks 1,629. This was probably a struggle week. Before that, 1,000. So it looks like they're averaging, the top drivers in Atlanta that use this app, looks like they're averaging like 1,500, close to 2,000. And we'll keep an eye on that. Let's see how many drivers they have making over 1,000 here. They have 14 drivers making over 1,000. Let's see who's next. All right, so we did Atlanta, we did Houston. We can't do Toronto. Let's look at Chicago. Let's look at the C's. So that's not too deep, not too far. Hey, look, Charleston. All right, Chicago. So for last week, Chicago IN. I don't know what Chicago IN is. I do want, I'm curious now. Chicago. I spelled that wrong. It's Illinois. Why is it popping up differently? Then what's IL? What is happening here? Oh, and there's a Chicago, Indiana. Okay, so there we go. Mystery solved. So, all right, we kind of have to. It's a little weird, but whatever. JB, shout out to you. You're number one, and Chicago IN. and that's $1,815. Number two, Chicago, Illinois, just on Grubhub, 1,605. It's really important to use more, not just like, I know people like to do what they know, but you should really be using all these apps and figuring out how to minimize and maximize your earnings with different apps. Don't get too sucked into one app. I made that mistake for a very long time, but not too bad. Not the greatest, not too bad. But there's still what, about 11 people that made more money than me or similar money to me. So not the greatest, not too bad. So the next city we're gonna look at would be Los Angeles. Now this is a curious one. Now, I know the cost of living is high in Los Angeles, but this is probably, outside of Minnesota, and we'll do Minnesota next. Outside of Minnesota, this is probably the most vocal group when it comes to strikes. So everyone's eyes are always on Los Angeles and Minnesota right now. We got to go all the way down to the M's. And I'll look at comments right after this. So if you leave a comment, I will respond. I'll spend some time with you guys. Shoot, I could honestly respond to comments in the time it takes me to scroll. I forgot where I was scrolling to. Los Angeles. I might have passed it because I had M in my mind. Yeah, I passed it. I'm distracted, guys. Okay, so Los Angeles. Let's first look at how many drivers in Los Angeles made more money than me. I made about what, 1,200. So we got 30 drivers in Los Angeles that made more money to me. So that's a signal to me that if I worked in LA, I could probably make a lot more money than I'm making now. Like if I worked in a major city, there's very high likeliness that I can make more money. And that's an assumption, right? Because we don't have the back end numbers. We don't know what kind of cars these guys are driving. But if I were in LA and I'm putting in max effort and I felt like I'm going to lose my mortgage, I would be looking at this and I'd be wondering, what are these guys doing that I'm not doing? Right. And that's not to slam dunk on anyone. That is, you need to be realistic and you need to like stop being emotional about it and pull more numbers out. You just have to do. And I'm going to say, I want to be clear. This does not mean that I'm saying that the people who are striking for nothing. I think striking can bring about change. And I think striking is great for the long-term survivability of an entity. Tristan Thomas, would I believe that you can figure out how to make more money and still want to strike. They don't have to be, it's not black or white. You can go and strike if you want. But in the meantime, while you're hurting, while your numbers are suffering, while Uber and Lyft are taking advantage of drivers, you should be figuring out how to counter that by increasing your pay. I've received comments from people saying, why should I have to put effort into something like lowly gig work in order to make more money? And my response to that person was, welcome to the real world. It's Don't confuse how things are with how they should be, right? You should always fight for how things should be, but when it comes to how things are, you need to accept things how things are if you want immediate results. This is how things work currently. This is what I have to do to make more money. And one of my favorite quotes, Jack Sparrow. I'm a big Pirates of the Caribbean fan. So only two things matter: what a man can't do and what a man can do. That's it. When it comes to acknowledging how things are you going to figure out how to make more money, or are you not going to figure out how to make more money, right? So that's kind of what it boils down to. And that's why I'm showing this. So really great numbers. Number one, California. Shout outs to you. You hustled. And this is just the people who have the apps. This isn't a representation of everyone. Someone could have made more money than this guy. But these are fantastic numbers. If you can do $2,000 a week, guess how much money that is a year? I'll break out the calendar for you. So $2,000 a week times 52 weeks in a year. We have an extra day this year. That's over $100,000. So let me show you guys someone. I want you guys to subscribe to this guy. Let's go YouTube. His name is Ronnie. I don't want to. I'm sorry. I got distracted by the thumbnails. Ronnie Spee or Ronnie Spee. Yeah, Ronnie Spee TV. Every week, or not even every week, he routinely brings people on who are making over $2,000 a week, right? And usually it's people from LA. I believe he's from. I'm not gonna say he's from. Look, this guy's from New Haven. This guy's from Phoenix, Arizona. This guy's from Detroit, Michigan, Angeles, and these every one of them he brings on. They're making 2K a week. California, Cleveland, Ohio, right? And but they're putting a lot of effort into it. It requires a lot of time, and they're doing it consistently. And I'm not saying that Uber and Lyft aren't taking advantage of us just because these guys are making over 100K a year. I'm just saying that if you need money, it is possible to make the money. Now, are you gonna have to push outside of your comfort zone to do it? Sure, but there's not many jobs that you can go and work as many hours as you want. They're gonna stop you, right? And then most jobs that will pay you more per hour if you do this right are gonna require degrees, certifications. You might not have that long. So there's options out there, and I expect better from my subscribers now. I've I I've decided to refocus on who my ideal subscriber is, and I expect the people who watch my content to be the people earning this money, right? I expect you to be top 5 in your city if you're in a big city. I expect you to be top 3 in your city if you're in a small city. If you're watching this content and you're struggling, I expect you to be in the top. Now, if you're watching this content and it's like a side gig for you, or you make whatever your weekly goals are, that's fine. There's still tips and tricks for you to learn by watching me. But if you, my ideal subscriber is me, right? Someone who's like me, someone who is hustling hard. They want to be intense for a season, right? People look at this, they watch my videos and like, oh, you're just wasting your life away just doing all this stuff. But they don't realize this is just for now. I'm gonna work hard for a year. I'll be debt free. My bills would be like $1,000 a month, and I'm gonna pivot into different industries because I have that financial leeway to do so. So don't think that this is something you have to do for a long period of time. Don't even think this is something you have to do every week. One week you could work hard, kind of chillax for the next week, chillax for another week, and then work hard when it's busy season. You work hard. You save up for when it's slow. So I just kind of want to start shifting how we think about these numbers and stop expecting more without doing more. It's unfortunate that's how it has to be. That is how it has to be. So let's go look at the number one, which is New York City. We said we would do Minnesota. Oh my God, it's all the way down at the bottom. So we'll do Minnesota real quick, and then we'll take a look at New York City, which is where most of my viewers are coming from. Minnesota. There we go. Or is it Minneapolis? I think it's Minneapolis that's having. So, all right, 1,500 top driver in Minneapolis. That's a little low. For that to be the top, I think that's a little low. I mean, it's still more than I made in my market, and I'm number one. But I do think that's a little low. Their cost of living is probably higher. So they're doing. We have a couple news stories that will cover them, and what's going on over there. So okay, Minnesota's a little low. Let's look at New York. I'm gonna drink some water. And wonder what the difference is between New York and New York City. Hmm. Okay. I guess I picked the wrong New York. Unfortunate. Now I have to scroll all the way back down. Okay, here we go. Hopefully this is it. Okay. This is for last week. New York, New York. Top driver made $2,686. That is more than double what I made last week. But like I said, I think New York City is the best place to be a gig worker right now. It's harder to become a gig worker there, but best place to be one. So let's see how many drivers in New York made more money than me. We're gonna go by the 1,200. So 15 drivers that use this app made more money than me. Man, if I was in a bigger city, I'd probably make $3,000 every week without having to put. I can make $3,000 in a week in my market. In fact, I'm trying to do it this week, which is why I'm a little tired and underprepared. But I'd probably have to work a lot less, maybe 20 hours less to make that kind of money. That would be nice. That'd be sweet. All right, I'm gonna check out the comments. Let me see what you guys are up to. What you guys are saying about me behind my back. And then I need to zoom in. Give me a second. That's too much zoom. There we go. How long does it take to get the spreadsheet? If you requested access to the spreadsheet, I'm gonna approve it like after this stream. Ron says, "Good afternoon, Tristan." Good afternoon, Ron. Ron is in my market. RKO 1988 says, "There's no way this is happening. He's either paid by Uber and Lyft." How can I respond to that? Give me a way to prove to you that that's not the case, right? Everyone, I don't get it. I just showed you how much money other drivers are making. Hold on, let me hold on, because I want you to see my eyeballs, right? I just showed you how much other drivers are making across the market. And first, hold on. Let's back up. Let's back up. I get this a lot, so I'm glad I have the opportunity to now address this. Why would Uber pay me money and Lyft also pay me money? Don't you think that if they were paying me money, that they would have a clause in their contract to where I couldn't talk about the other? Don't you think that might be the case? And then even if I am paid by Uber and Lyft, I just showed you proof on the apps of how much money I'm making. So let's say they're slipping me money behind closed doors. On the app, I showed you proof of how many hours I'm working and how I'm making money. I showed you my $20 an hour day. I showed you my $35 an hour day. So I want you to sit on that and consider that. If you have good responses to that, put them in chat so that I can walk through them and see what's going on. The second thing, it is more expensive for you to think that I'm being paid by Uber and Lyft or lying than to heed my words, to take my advice. You don't get anything. I'm gonna calm down a little bit. I'm gonna make sure I'm not attacking you. But you will make more money believing what I say than thinking I'm lying. The only problem is if you believe what I say, then you probably have to accept that there is something you're not doing that could be making you more money. And I think that's what it is for a lot of people. They don't want to accept the idea that, man, I've been doing this wrong for a while. You know, there's I'm not making as much money as the other people in my market, and even though Uber and Lyft are taking advantage of drivers, there are still other drivers out there who are making money. You have to accept that if you want to go out there and start making more money. You have to consider the way you have been living life, the way you have been doing the things that you do is inadequate. And that's okay. I realize that about me in different aspects of my life all the time. Sometimes I have to sit back, take a step back. I'm being an inadequate YouTuber. How can I get better? I'm being an inadequate rideshare driver. How can I get better? I'm being an inadequate husband. How can I get better? I'm being an inadequate parent. How can I get better? It's important for you to always strive to get better. Even when you think you're the best, if you want to stay the best, you need to always focus on, how do I improve? Process improvement needs to be number one when it comes to running your business, when it comes to running your life. So there you go. But I do officially want to say I'm not being paid by Uber or Lyft. I have no contact with Uber and Lyft outside of any other Uber or Lyft driver. I don't even think they know I exist. So there you go. Ron says, take what Jeep says with a grain of salt. Yes, I have started doing that. The problem that stirs my soul is that he keeps, whenever he calls my name, he always makes up these like crazy examples. He's like, oh, Tristan's out there taking 30 cent a mile rides, when I've never done that. It's not true. So it does bother me a little, because it's the rideshare space. People who view his content are gonna watch that and they're gonna see my thumbnails and my videos, not click on them, because they already have this preconceived notion of what my strategy, and they don't, right? And I think that my strategy actually makes more money. So I'm not gonna tell people to do cash rides unless they do it properly. So that's one. So whatever. He wants to talk about cash rides, he could talk about cash rides, fine. I'm not going to do that. My strategy will always be focused on what drivers can do in the app to make more money, and what drivers can do in their personal lives to cut down on the money they spend so that they can run their business more efficiently. That's what I'm doing. And I think that I do that better than other people. I'm not going to go too deep into it. I'm trying to refocus on not focusing on what's going on out there and keep focused on who's in here with me. So that's what my plan is. Dimples on Demand. That's a great name. She says my this camera quality it's amazing. Thank you. I appreciate that. Um, I don't know if you're trying to be a YouTuber, but light is more important than camera quality, right? Once there's no light, then you can't even see me. It's really based off of the lighting and what you have going on in the background. I do have a 35 millimeter lens on it. Your lens and the light matter more than the camera itself. This camera I bought it used for $300, and there's way better out there. So if you're trying to be a YouTuber, just focus on getting a really good lens that allows a lot of light to come in, and then a light. And then I have so this is actually only the camera itself is showing you guys 720p. So you're not even seeing like the proper quality of the camera. Um, but if you are a YouTuber, go to my homepage and go to contact, and then shoot me an email, and then I love talking YouTube with people, but most people here aren't YouTubers. But I love talk. I'll give you all the game I know about YouTube and video if you are a YouTuber. Driving with TY says shots fired. Shots always fired, bro. Always fired. Christoph says, what's the app called? It's called Solo, but there's a link below. If you use it, I get money, you get money. It's a good deal. Solo, SOLO. How long does it take to get the spreadsheet? I just answered this, but I'll answer it again. Um, right after this, I'm gonna go through my list and then do it. I try to look at it once a day. I need to figure out a way to automate it to where once you sign up, it compares your Patreon email to your signed up email. I haven't figured out how to do that yet, and it drives me insane. But I try to look at it once a day. But I am working a lot, but I will get it done today. So sorry if it's late. Eric says, I appreciate your content, Tristan. If you could see what drivers are making in Phoenix, Arizona, that will help me to know if I'm working efficiently. I'll show you. Yeah, I'll pull it up. I'll pull it up. Let's go back. I forgot to switch over my cameras. We need Windows link. Okay. So let's check out Arizona. It's at the top. I hope. No. Phoenix is at it's not at the bottom, it's not at the top. We'll get to it. LMNOP. Is that PH, right? I probably passed it. Here we go. So Phoenix, Arizona, top driver last week made $1,657. Number two made 1,344. Number three made 1,321. So hold on, there's still 7 drivers that made more than me. But I'd probably make it's probably similar to my market right now. And you guys are probably in your slow season too. And you guys are actually competing with autonomous driving, right? Waymo is operating in your city. Oops, I didn't want to do that. But yeah, Waymo is operating in your city. Oh, poor Albany people. So I will say legitimately, there are some markets where you're not gonna make a lot of money. Here's look at this. This is it's not great. But I will also say, no matter what industry you work in, if you want to make the maximum amount of money, you're gonna have to move. And if you don't want to move, that's okay. I'm not saying that you should move, but if I don't also don't think you should be the thing I'm about to say. I don't think anyone should be a long-term driver. But if you want to be, that's okay. There's nothing against it, as long as you're prepared for the slow decline of pay. That's fine. But if unless you're trying to be a long-term driver, if I was trying to be a long-term driver, I'd move back to New York City. Honestly, um, yeah, I'd move back to New York City if I was trying to be a long-term driver. Because no matter what industry, it could be computer science, it could be railroading, whatever. People always had to move for jobs. So sometimes that's just what it is. Sometimes your market isn't a good market, but a lot of people default to the market being the problem instead of trying to figure out what they can do to improve, right? Both can be true. The market could be the problem and you could also improve. So Eric says the app is called Solo. Thank you, thank you. All right, I don't know why it just jumped like that. Eric says, "Truth, brother. Stop making excuses and start making progress." I like that. I'm gonna have to write that down somewhere. Stop making excuses and start making progress. I butchered it, but I like that. I like that a lot. The Driven Dad, what's up? Haven't heard from you in a while. Welcome back. Welcome back. You're probably out there grinding. Probably out there grinding more than me. The Driven Dad, like, he's on it. Go check out his content. He's always on it. Northern Landscaping wants me to check Washington D.C. He says, I'm interested in coming back to do Uber and Lyft in DC. Before COVID, I just do 15 grand a week on 55 hours. Let me do some quick. I'll look for you, but let me do some quick math to see like what that works out per hour, because that it makes it easier on my brain. 1500 divided by 55, 27. That's not bad. That's pretty decent. And 55 hours is not terrible either. When I was a district manager, I'll tell you guys this as I look and scroll for Washington D.C. I don't know if it'll be under Washington or D.C. But when I was a district manager, I was scheduled to work 50 hours a week, and I probably worked more than that most times. Even when I was a store manager, DC. So like for me, working 50 hours a week while sitting in a car, easy. You're talking 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, or 8 hours a day. What is that? I'm not gonna make up numbers. 8 times 7. 8 times 7. So 8 hours a day, 7 days a week is 56 hours. It's not crazy. And you can take a break whenever you want. A lot of people aren't even like aware of how much worse it could be in corporate America. I'm not gonna make it say that that's better. So all right, let me focus. I don't think there's any DC here, so I guess I have to go to Washington. Washington DC. Ooh, top driver in Washington, 2,068. Driver number two, 1,719. Washington number three, 1,522. So we have 12 people who've made more money than I've made. And let's also go back in time a little bit to see if they had a slow period as well last week. I assume they have college and universities there. So 1,600, yeah. So they experienced the same slow period that I experienced last week. Yeah, so Washington looks like a pretty decent place. I know it's expensive, but I know that you can live an hour outside of Washington to have like more normal cost of living and then drive into the city. But I also know that Washington is on the border of a lot of places, and sometimes you can't pick up where you drop off and things of that nature. I'm not 100% sure how it works, but I know there's some restrictions there. Fun fact, I've tried to drive in every state that touches the water on the East Coast. I have a video where I drove from Key West. I drove all the way down to Key West. I um I filled up my gas tank, and then the only money I could spend between Key West and Maine was the money I made doing Uber Lyft on the way up in different cities. So I had to learn real quick which states and cities I couldn't drive in. It was a fun video. It's gonna take a while to edit it, but I can't wait. I can't wait to share that with you guys. I expect that to be like my biggest video, and I've been sitting on it for like almost a year now. Matcha says I haven't driven in a while, but I'm probably going back to it soon to pay off debt. Chicago market, baby. Be careful in Chicago. I'm not trying to spook you, but all the really bad news I see comes from Chicago. So just be smart about your pickups. Keep your head on the swivel out there. I know that's probably one of the worst places to live crime wise, but I'm from a big city as well. So I mean, New York's not as bad as Chicago, but I get it. So just be safe up there. Uh, I'm pro pay off debt. I'm following the Dave Ramsey plan. It's an aggressive way to do it. But I'm working on a rideshare plan. I want to give rideshare drivers a list of things that they should have financially at minimum. So, for example, like rideshare insurance, which is like for me, extra $100, what their emergency fund should be like, in retrospect to what the insurance premiums might be if you get into a car accident. So I'm working on like a list of things, like a financial list rideshare drivers should have at minimum, so that they can be more safe financially speaking when it comes to rideshare. But I'm super pro pay off debt. I just paid off my car 2 months ago. Made a video about that, and The only thing that's left to pay off is me and my wife's student loans, and that's why I really am trying to make 100K this year. Island Blue says Hawaii in the house. I know that I've seen some guy in Hawaii during the winter months. He was pulling in like 4 grand a week with DoorDash. I want to look at it real quick. I'm gonna do Honolulu because I don't really know any better. I hope I don't pick the wrong thing. Oh, I picked the wrong thing. Now I have to scroll all the way back down. Like half the stream is just me scrolling, guys. Here we go. So slow here. I don't think he's gonna eat well. 2000. I mean, he was crushing it during like December, but I can't go. I can't go any further back than that. But I remember seeing some guy from Honolulu. He was absolutely killing it. Absolutely killing it. Iman says, Tristan, you're doing a great job. I'm learning a lot and I'm doing great in my market because of your strategies. I appreciate it. And, you know, I'm thankful for it. I had to accept that if I wanted to do this and share strategies, people who are in my market are going to be in direct competition with me. And I became okay with that. I realized I'm the pond is not as big as I thought it was. Most drivers aren't even on YouTube or on social media. They don't know what's going on. So I am happy that I'm able to reach people. And helping one person make more, like making money is important. Like it enables you to do so much. And if I'm able to help people make money, that's why I started my YouTube channel. Originally, it wasn't for rideshare. Originally, I'm a first generation American. I'm technically a second generation, but my mom was born in Jamaica and she came to America and had me. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm the first generation true American, and she is American now. But you get what I'm saying. And I started learning about the stock market and how retirement works, and that there are things that people can do to never have to like work again. And it takes work to get to it. And they call it the fire movement or whatever it is. And I'm like, everyone needs to know this information. So I started my YouTube channel wanting to like talk about finances and things like that. But those videos are boring, right? No one wants to click on a video like how to retire in 30 years, right? No one's thinking about that stuff. So when I started doing rideshare, I was like, all right, let me wrap my content around rideshare, right? There's more of an immediate need for it. And then while I'm trying to help people with their immediate need, I can start to like, you know, convince them to start doing better with their personal finances. And so I'm going to start doing a little more of that. But yeah, my goal, man, is just to help as many people change their financial family tree as much as possible. So I'm here for it. Eric says, yeah, don't listen to the haters, man. You're doing a great job and I enjoy your valuable tips to do better and make more money. Appreciate you, man. And I appreciate you for watching. I'm also a anime fan. My wife loves Dragon Ball Z, and I appreciate the picture you got up, the throwbacks. How much the driver's making in Hawaii? I already read your mind and I checked you out. It is pretty low. Hawaii is probably a small market too, man. Give me a name of another Hawaii city, and then I'll try to look it up. Eric says, yes, those numbers are actually not that bad. If I dedicate the time, I know I can do 1900 weekly. So thanks for showing me. Yeah. And just always keep in mind, the amount of money you make gross isn't equal to the amount of money you make net. Make sure you have a good card for it. If you're driving a pickup truck, you should probably sell it and get something smaller, get something more efficient. Just try to do what you can to lower your expenses. If something's wrong with your car, always watch a couple YouTube videos to figure out if it's something you can fix, right? I have tire plugs. I made a video on tire plugs. It didn't perform well, and that's fine. But whenever there's a nail in my tire and it's not in the sidewall, I'm plugging it, and that's a $5 fix versus getting a whole $100 tire. So see what you can do on your own. If I went with the dealership to fix my airflow sensor, which needs to be replaced, $700. I looked it up on YouTube. The airflow sensor, I can get it for $100, and I can do it myself. It's not that complicated. Now, sometimes I'll look at something and I'm like, okay, this is out of my scope, but at least research it to see if you can do it. I also today, before the sun goes down, I gotta get off soon. I'm gonna try to change my oil myself for the first time, right? And that's gonna take my average oil change cost down from $100. I have to use like synthetic oil; it's expensive, to about $40. So I'm doing what I can to save money in addition to making money. I'll look for Hilo Kana. All right, let's check that out. I know the cost of living in Hawaii is really high. So there's no Hilo. I might pronounce that incorrectly. Hilo. Let's look for Kana. I doubt that they'd be better than Honolulu. I already forgot what I'm looking for. I'm so distracted. A B C D E F G H I J K. Yeah, I don't even see it. What do you usually average in your city, or do you even deliver? Do you even deliver people? All right, so we're gonna move forward. We're gonna check out some news stories. There's some big stories that we'll check out, and then I gotta go soon, guys. I usually I'm here for like 4 hours, but I can't. I can't. I gotta. I gotta eat. I gotta start driving. I gotta change my oil. All right, so there's a Business Insider article where a driver made over $110,000 from Uber and Lyft in 2022, but took home only $14,000 after 6 years on the job. He's working towards a degree in a new career. I want to start with I'm going to use this guy as an example of how we as rideshare drivers should protect ourselves from the mistakes that he makes in this video. Um, but I want to be clear that despite the fact that I'm honing in on some of one, there's some misconceptions in here that Business Insider is just not aware of that I'm going to bring to light. And two, there are things that this guy did that he could have done better. He could have protected himself, but I am not saying in any way, shape, or form that this absolves Lyft and Uber of how they take advantage of drivers. I want to separate that right now. The focus while I'm reading this article is based off of what this particular individual could have done to shield himself financially from the mistakes that he made, despite the fact that Uber and Lyft are taking advantage of him. So now that I've got that, I'm gonna start giving that disclaimer a lot more often, so that when people in the comments say I'm just trying to protect Uber and Lyft, I'm just gonna copy and paste the timestamp of this video and share it with them. But let's read the story. And as I'm reading the story, I'm gonna give feedback off of what's happening in the story. Michael, a ride hailing driver in his late 30s, made more than $110,000 in gross earnings driving for Uber and Lyft in 2022. But after commissions paid for the ride hailing company's taxes and other expenses, he ended up with a net earnings of just $14,000. That sounds horrible, but there's way more to it. Michael, who's based in New Jersey and asked us to use only his first name in fear of professional repercussions, shared tax documents and screenshots of rides that disclose just how little he took home in 2022. Expenses included buying a new engine, having numerous car repairs, and driving amid elevated gas prices. He said he noticed ride hailing driving had become increasingly less profitable after more than 17,000 rides across 6 years. Now, he's 100% right about that. They made more money back in the day than they make now. I started during the pandemic, and I recently had a conversation with someone who's been driving before the pandemic, and he said, like, what we're seeing now with the slowdown is very reminiscent of how it was before the pandemic. So I'm a pandemic rideshare baby, and my perception, we came in at a good time. Drivers stopped driving, and that the government was giving out free money. If the government gives out free money, less people work. This is how it happened. And he said, like, what we're experiencing now is how it has been in the past, and we're just getting caught back up to it. But when Uber and Lyft first launched, they were paying significantly better. So any driver who's been driving for a while, they can attest to the fact that yes, in the past it was better and it is now getting worse. That's something I want you to keep in mind. Even though I come on here and try to get you guys to make more money, keep in mind that pay is decreasing over time. So, like, put that into your long-term financial plan. As a driver with a spinal injury who takes care of two young kids, he said he'd struggled to make ends meet for himself and his family. He's soon to set to enroll in a bachelor's degree program funded entirely by Uber, but in the meantime, driving is one of his only options to pull in cash. I'm actually thinking about doing that program to finish my computer science degree. I think that free school is good. If it's free, is best. If you use that, don't do it. At the end of the year, we incur every single cost from wear and tear to mechanical, cell phones, oil changes, gas, which is our biggest expense. We're now getting less pay. Gas is the biggest expense, and depending on the kind of car you get, it's bigger than your car payment. But again, depends on the kind of car you get. Americans with disabilities are increasingly looking to gig work, particularly ride hailing, driving, to pay their bills and to find work schedules that fit their needs. As many Americans with disabilities are unable to work 9 to 5 jobs, gig work has appealed to those who need the flexibility to craft their own hours. But for drivers such as Michael, gig work is unsustainable given all the associated costs that go into ride hailing, driving, and the lack of benefits. We'll talk about the benefits in a second. Michael started driving for ride hailing companies in 2017 after being a delivery driver for Domino's, which he said wasn't paying the bills. He estimated that at the time he received 60 to 70% of what the passenger paid, and it was relatively stable as it was one of his first jobs since getting a work permit as an immigrant. He estimated that time he received 60 to 70%. Okay, when Uber, I know Uber used to have a 20-80% split where the driver would get 80%, Uber would take 20. So this probably by the time he joined in, they probably flexed it a little bit. So that looks to be accurate. That would be nice in today's market. If we got 60 to 70%, that would be fantastic. It was I was in an extreme financial situation and convinced of driving and the convenience of driving was perfect because I had a newborn. I didn't have a green card. I was limited in my choice of employment and my wife wasn't working. So he was probably using someone else's account because how else do you the rules could have been different back then. The rules could have been different. He might have had a license that wasn't from America and they might have accepted that. Very unlikely. It's more likely he was using someone else's account, but okay. He switched to Uber full time shortly after, driving in the nighttime as rides were most profitable and competition was sparse, which is still true today. He drove 40 to 50 hours a week and sometimes as many as 80, and he was able to attend doctor appointments and take time off when in pain. Okay, so I thought he got injured on the job. We'll see. You'll see why I thought that. He also said driving early in the pandemic was profitable as few drivers were on the road, which allowed him to make 1,800 to 2,200 a week fairly consistently. I wish I could go back in time with the knowledge I have now of strategy during the pandemic and apply that strategy to how I was working in the pandemic. I would have made a lot more money. Would have made a lot more money. But after a serious car crash, he was out of work for a few months and continued to see doctors regularly for the next 3 years. He didn't have health insurance, so much of his earnings went to medical costs. Okay, this is actually perfect. This is perfect. If you don't have health insurance and rideshare is your like main income driver, I want you to go and watch a video that I just made. Today's the last day, right? The last day. Oh, look at. I'm not even. I can't. I'm just gonna go to my channel. Money Talk with Tristan Thomas. Okay. So I guess it's not my latest video, but today's the last day for it. You can get. I pay $24 a month for insurance, and that's because of rideshare. Right, this one, urgent. It ends by $326. I don't know why it's showing that way. We reduced by $326. Okay, pause. January 16th. So today, I believe today's the last day. You might have until the end of the 16th, but I wouldn't even like mess around with it. So you can see, right? This is my premium. This is real. I logged into my Am Better, and I pay $28 a month for insurance. This whole video, I break down what I get for that. I even walk through how you can sign up for your own like insurance. If you don't have insurance, please get it. Today's the last day. It's so important. This is we talk most of my videos talk about how to increase your income. This is how to protect your income, right? If you're married, if you got kids, you might have to pay a little more, but having insurance is how you protect your income. Like I found out I had diabetes last year. I might not have it anymore just because, I've worked on it. Diabetes type 2 is something that can actually go away with proper diet and exercise. Um, but I wouldn't have found out. I just went for a routine check because I had insurance. My glasses paid for by insurance. My ADHD that I didn't realize I had until very recently, my medication, my psychiatrist, all paid by insurance. Like today you're fine, tomorrow you might not be, and today's the last day to get insurance for the rest of the year until November. So like it's very important. It's one of the benefits, and he should have had insurance, right? He said he had a green card at the time. I assume eventually he got a citizenship because I don't understand how he's still working for Uber and Lyft. But and I also don't know if non-citizens can get insurance through the government insurance program. I don't know how that works, but if you are able to, yo, just get it. Even if you have a high deductible, even if your deductible is like 5,000, shoot, even if it's 10,000, if you get into an accident where it's gonna be like $100,000 bill, or you get cancer or anything like that, this is how you protect your finances. And I think you guys should at least look at it. So he one mistake number one that this guy made, he didn't have insurance. A year later, he got into another car crash that damaged his vehicle, which amounted to more bills from auto repairs and a car rental. Money was tight, he said, but he got through it. He took time off from March 2020 to September 2020 to care for his young kids, and then had a spinal fusion that put him out for 2 months. Sounds like he was just using the stimulus money checks, which is fine. He's having a rough time, accident, but I probably would have at least. I guess the kids were out of school. But yeah, okay. There's a lot. There's a lot there. I'm not gonna go too deep on that because there's a lot that I just don't know. And whatever. The world was a weird place back then. I, I do want to. We'll keep going. I'll talk about car insurance later. He said he noticed over the past few years that he'd been making less and less per ride amid changes to ride hailing companies' pricing models, shifts in surge pricing, and the adoption of upfront pricing. I think upfront pricing lowered driver pay for two reasons, right? It got rid of the rate card, which was Uber and Lyft really taking advantage of us. And then two, I find that drivers don't know how to pick rides. They don't do it consistently. I'll see other YouTube drivers, they'll show, their screen, and they'll decline a ride that makes like you know, a good amount per mile, and then they'll accept a ride that makes worse. And I just feel like upfront pay is doing it. Like people just aren't doing a great job of deciding what's a good ride and what isn't a good ride. He said that pre-pandemic he would make 15 to 2,000 a week before gas and taxes, but he was now pulling in about 1,000 to 1,100 a week. I wonder where he works. He added that the saturation of drivers in his market in New Jersey. He did say that. New Jersey can be hit or miss. Sometimes they have good weeks, sometimes they don't. And New Jersey drivers can't necessarily drive in New York City. They can't even always drive in Pennsylvania. It's weird. Like it's very like clustered together, and it will suck if you have to drop someone off and then deadhead back, and then that's happening all day. So I get it. There's some challenges there, but New Jersey does have the lowest gas price in the Northeast. He said he also noticed fewer promotions, which in the past meant frequent bonuses for completing a certain number of rides in the area over the past year. That's fair. Every day you have to come up with a different plan with regard to where you will work and on what schedule that will make you money. That's becoming more and more true. And as that becomes more and more true, the drivers who are resistant to that are going to continue making less and less money. And the drivers who are accepting of that are going to maintain their money. I'm not going to say make more and more money, but you'll put in more effort to maintain similar amounts of money. That's just how it is. If you don't like it, prepare to exit. Screenshots shared with Business Insider show he recently received only $167 from a ride in which the passenger paid $350. Long rides aren't worth it anymore. I used to love long rides. Another ride that cost the passenger almost $500 gave him only $220. And sometimes he's offered rides where he needs to drive 10 to 20 miles to pick up a customer, only for them to travel a mile or two. That would suck. Sometimes I'm okay with this. If I know it's going to put me in a better area, I'll just take the loss. But I'm not going to assume that the area that the drop off was in was busier than where he was currently. I depend mostly on tips now, and I work a specific area where I get the most tips on most of the rides because I conversate with passengers. It threw me off. It's not a word, but I'm not judging. Michael said, adding that he kept 3 dash cams in his car in case of any bad reports. I have 2 dash cams, one inside, one for the front. I assume if someone hits me in the back, the front hopefully is enough to determine that I wasn't reversing and it's not my fault. When you're doing dash cam shopping, be aware that most sensors are the same. They're bought from the same company, and it's just the features of the dash cam that change. So if you get a cheap dash cam, it probably has the same camera sensor as the expensive one. And I made a mistake and I got the most expensive one. Huge mistake, but it's okay. Tax return shared with BI shows Michael made 80 grand in gross earnings from Uber in 2021, which was reduced to $20,600 after expenses and commissions. So this is where I'm gonna call a little bit of bullshit. And let me finish this paragraph. In 2020, he made 34,000 from Uber since he took a few months off. Though he lost 1,000 on net for Lyft, he took home 600 but had gross earnings of over 3,300. If you've never done your taxes, or if you never actually paid attention to your taxes, and I can't blame Business Insider here, but there's a lot of misconception here, and I want to clear it up, and I'm going to need my calculator. Okay, so I'm going to do this math. Hold on, let me see what else they're saying. Okay, pretty much over. So I'm going to do this math on the total amount that they have in the title. So they say that he made $1,100 dollars, right? Right. Yeah. Let me switch this up. So they say he made $1,100, right? Let me pull up proof. Average driven per mile by rideshare drivers. What's that app called? I can't remember. Gridwise. So Gridwise has a report that shows how much drivers are making per mile, right? And this is the graph. Zoom in a little here, or zoom out a little. All right. Okay. Here we go. So I did the math on this already. I added all these months up, and it's about 80 cents. We're gonna call it 80 cents per mile. That's why I say the average driver makes 80 cents per mile. You know, here it is. Zoom in a little bit so you can see it, right? So when you average all that, it's about 80 cents per mile. So we're bringing the calculator back up. So that means if we multiply 80 cents by $110,000, that's going to show us how many miles on average a driver has to drive in order to make $110,000. So multiply by 0.8. So he would have to drive 88,000 miles in order to make 110,000 miles at the average rate. So let's assume he drove 88,000 miles in 2022, right? So now we need to look at what is the standard mileage deduction for 2022. So the standard mileage deduction is 62.5 cents per mile. The standard mileage deduction is a federal mileage rate. Oh, sorry. Standard mileage rate, I'm trying to explain what it is. It's pretty much what the government allows you to write off on your income, so you don't have to pay taxes for that, right? So then when we multiply 88,000 miles by 0.625 cents, that number that we're going to see is how much he's allowed to subtract from his income. So he's allowed to subtract $55,000 from his income. So that means he won't be taxed on $55,000. Now, a percentage of that is going to be expenses related. He did have high, like if he had to replace an engine, that's still not more than a 10 grand thing. But $55,000. So we're going to go here, right? We're going to say minus 110. It's going to give us a negative number, but you just make it non. So he only has to pay taxes on $55,000. So that already lowers like the part of rideshare that is important is the tax write-off. We make tax-free dollars. So all right, I'm struggling to explain this. I'm gonna use my spreadsheet. So my per mile expenses right now so far this month is 16 cents, right? So for 2024, I think the standard mileage deduction is 67 cents. So 67 cents per mile, right? So I can write off 67 cents per mile no matter what. That's just the standard mileage deduction. If I subtract my actual per mile expense, that gives me 51 cents, right? So for every mile I drive based off of my expense ratio versus the standard mileage deduction, I make 51 cents in tax free money. Now, when I do my taxes, it's going to show that I only made $55,000, but that's not like the whole truth, right? And I actually can figure out. So let's multiply this by 110. No, no, sorry. The need to multiply. Oh yeah, by the. Well, let me think by the 110 by the amount. Yeah, so 110. So that's how much money he made. That's not getting taxed. If that's if his expenses were my ratio. So like if I drove as much as he drove and my expense ratio was what my current expense ratio is, $56,000 out of the 1,010 out of the $110,000 would be tax free money. You don't pay taxes on that. And that's where rideshare drivers really make their money off of the standard mileage deduction. That's why it's really important to keep your costs as low as possible, drive the cheapest car possible to make the most money possible, because the tax free money is where we make our money. But on our taxes, it's going to show that we made like $55,000, and then we have to pay taxes on that amount of money. So it's misleading for Business Insider, and I don't blame them. They're probably not, whoever wrote this is probably not a driver. It's misleading to say he only took home 14,000 because about half of the money he actually made is tax free, and it's not going to show up on your income report, which is why some drivers struggle to get loans, because our income shows that it's a lot lower than it actually is, which is why I qualify for very cheap health insurance, because it shows me not making a lot of money because of the standard miles deduction. Now the standard miles deduction, when they create that average, it's also based off of semi trucks. The average cost to operate a semi truck, the average cost for construction workers to operate a car, and we're at the bottom of that spectrum. So we're benefiting from that standard miles deduction, which is why I'm a little afraid of the next story. The next story is Biden administration to unveil contractor rule that could upend gig economy, because if they it could go well and it could go bad. If they take away the standard miles deduction, I strongly believe being a rideshare driver will no longer be worth it unless it comes with something else that will change the pay gap. And I think that they are doing this or want to do this in order to get more taxes. If there's no standard mile deduction, then the government can make more money off of taxes. And with gig work exploding the way it has, I can see that perspective. But this is all conjecture. We don't know what will happen. And we're gonna read the story, and then I'm gonna tell you what I think we should be doing in the face of this legislation. We're gonna also view different viewpoints. The administration of U.S. President, the administration of U.S. President Joe Biden will release a final rule as soon as this week that will make it more difficult for companies to treat workers as independent contractors rather than employees that typically cost a company more, in administration officials say. The U.S. Department of Labor rule, which was first proposed in 2022 and is likely to face legal challenges, will require that workers be considered employees entitled to more benefits and legal protections than contractors when they are economically independent on a company. A range of industries will likely be affected by the rule, which will take effect later this year, but its potential impact on app-based service that rely heavily on contract workers has garnered the most attention. Shares of Uber Technologies, Lyft, and DoorDash all tumbled at least 10% when the draft of the rule was proposed in 2022. Is this old? No. Okay. Because they're talking a lot. The rule will likely decrease flexibility for workers, resulting in lost opportunities to earn money, according to Mark Friedman, vice president of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the largest U.S. business lobby. Maybe. We don't really know. It is likely to threaten the flexibility of individuals to work when and how they want, and could have significant impacts on our economy. For example, if they put in there like overtime pay would be fantastic. I'd make a lot of money. But chances are they wouldn't want to pay that overtime pay, and they would cap you at how many hours you can drive, put you at 40 hours. That's something we did in corporate world as a result. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I am saying that if that happens, don't what looks good on paper doesn't always work well in actuality. So be very observant when it comes to this whole thing. And I don't know if it's going to be good or bad. We would have to have more information, and we don't have that information. In a draft version of the rule in 2022, the Labor Department said it would consider factors such as workers' opportunity for profit or loss of investment permanency, the degree of control by the employer over the worker, and whether the work is integral part of employer's business. The rule replaces a Trump administration regulation that said workers who own their own business or have the ability to work for competing companies, such as drivers who work for Uber and Lyft, can be treated as contractors. Okay. And keep in mind, right? California had a law that said for a period of time, drivers are now employees. And then I believe Trump made changes, and then it got challenged in the Supreme Court, and then they converted it back to independent contractors. So, that might be the angle they're trying to play. The department's sharp break from the Trump era regulation will likely be the focus of lawsuits challenging the new rule. Legal experts have said federal law requires agencies to adequately explain their decision to withdraw and replace existing rules. I do want to say this before we even go any further. It might sound like the government is fighting for rideshare drivers. It's an election year. This is something they could have done 4 years ago if they believed it. There's nothing that could have stopped them from overturning it. I think this is just a gardener support. They're trying to, even if they did the same thing with student loans. They knew they couldn't actually forgive student loans. They took it to court, and it failed, and they knew that. And they used that as a way to draw land in the sign, a land to draw a line in the sand to show voters who supports it and who doesn't support it. I think that's what they're doing here again with rideshare. I don't think that this is noble. There might be things that come out of this that benefit us, and there might be things that harm us. There's no real way to tell. But at the end of the day, keep in mind that it's an election cycle. The Biden administration has said that Trump era rule violated U.S. wage laws and was out of step with decades of federal court decisions, and worker advocates have said a more strict standard was necessary to combat the rapid misclassification of workers in some industries. Government stands to profit from people not being considered independent contractors. Like, that needs to be known and aware. That doesn't mean they're doing it for that reason, but it also doesn't mean they're not doing it for that reason. The left-leaning Economic Policy Institute, in a report last year, estimated that a truck driver treated as a contractor earns up to $18,000 less per year than one who is deemed an employee, while construction workers' earnings drop by nearly $17,000 and home health aides lose up on almost $9,500 in pay and benefits. Now, all right, so those are general stats. One, we just walked through how it can look like independent contractor is making less money because of the tax write-offs that are involved. So that's one. Two, again, I have higher standards for my subscribers. I expect you guys, if you're a truck driver, I expect you to have like the lowest expense ratio out of all the truck drivers out there, just because you're making smarter decisions and you're maximizing your income. That is my expectation of you guys. So comparing ourselves to average, the less average you are, right? The more on the high end spectrum you are, is the more a classification as an employee might hurt you. Like, there might be, like I showed you, there are drivers in my city somehow making $17 an hour with Lyft. If there's a change that now pays an hourly rate of $20, that's a benefit for them. But it's a slap in the face for someone who's been maximizing their income. So yeah, sure, it might be a little unfair, but we are putting in more effort. We are learning. We are trying to do things, and this is something to be aware of. This is how it works. Business groups sharply criticized the draft rule after it was proposed. Any change in policy is expected to increase labor costs for many sectors, including trucking, retail, and manufacturing. That's usually what happens. Now, I'm not going to go too much deeper into this because there are some. I don't want to go too deep into this. We don't really know what they're thinking, what they're doing, but right in the face of this, to you, I would say, make as much money as you can now, because we don't know how this will truly affect us, right? Uber put out a statement saying, this rule doesn't change anything, but that's all just PR stuff. Right? They say the rule does not contain an A/B test for worker classification. There will be a 60-day window before this rule is into effect, so it won't even go into effect until March. Between now and March, make as much money as you can just to prepare in case the government does something stupid that really does jack up your paycheck. And it might not be the government. Uber and Lyft might react poorly to this new rule if the government does something, and they might decrease our pay as a result, and like say, hey, now the drivers are making less because of this rule change. Can we go back? Like, anything can happen. Anything can happen, and we need to protect ourselves. So I think like you should be going hard between now and whenever this rule changes. Go hard. When the rule changes, you observe the landscape and determine if you need to slow down or continue going hard. Department of Labor officials have repeatedly stressed that the rule is intended to address misclassification of workers in traditional industries and is unlikely to result in any large scale classification changes. All right. But again, everyone has their side to play. Uber has their side to play. I'm going to read this. As for Uber, we will continue pushing in states around the country for models that provide drivers with flexibility and benefits. Like our CEO outlined in the New York Times open ended piece and what is in our working together priorities. For example, Prop 22 in California, voters overwhelmingly approved Prop 22 in 2020 with 59% of the vote, ensuring that drivers keep their independent status while gaining access to new benefits and protections, including a minimum earning standard, a healthcare stipend for more active workers, and occupational accident insurance. That's great. If that can become more widespread, I think that would be a benefit for drivers. They still can write off their mileage write offs. This is in New York as well. And I'd be for this. I'd support that. As long as we can keep our mileage write off and work as much as we want, whatever else they want to do, I think it's is a benefit. In Washington state, Uber worked together with Lyft, a local union, and Democrats in the state legislature to pass a bill providing a minimum wage, paid family and medical leave, and other benefits to ride-hail drivers while ensuring drivers kept their independent status and the flexibility that comes with it. I support that. New York State, in November, Uber and New York's Attorney General reached a landmark agreement to ensure drivers retain their independent status and flexibility while also having access to new benefits and protections like a minimum earning standard, paid sick leave, and more. That's why I said New York. I think New York's one of the best markets for it. And, protesting can get you here. Being loud, talking to your government officials, there are benefits to protesting. Just if you can't afford to protest, I need you to be driving. There's a protest plan for February Valentine's Day, and I haven't really shared my thoughts yet. I'm gonna share my thoughts soon. It won't be today, but soon. Lyft also put out some news. It's getting late, guys. I gotta go. I had other stories prepared, but I got stuff to do. So I'll check in with the comments, see what you guys are saying, and then I gotta skedaddle. $300 a day, that's pretty good, depending on how many hours you're putting in. If you're putting in 12 hours to make 300, that's good. Yeah, man. Eric says, yeah, man, my car is perfect for the job. I have a 2013 Prius V. I want a Prius V so badly. That gets me about 40 miles per gallon. Love it. Always finding ways to maximize income while reducing expenses. No worries, man. Have a productive day. The car I picked my car before I started Rideshare. I have a Volkswagen Jetta, and I want to buy a Prius so badly. Like if something happens to my car, it's gonna be a Prius. In fact, once I'm debt free, I might buy a Prius. Once I'm debt free, I'm gonna buy a Prius regardless, and I'll probably put my Volkswagen on Toro. The Driven Dad says, by the time I figured out you are using the Ramsey plan, I decided to do that too. Great minds think alike. I love it, man. Oh, I'm so excited for you. Oh, you're gonna you have so many kids. You're gonna change all of their lives, all of their lives. I says, what's up, bro? What's up? I see you. I didn't really know you were a mod for the Amazing Hustler, but I see you doing your mod thing. Northern Landscaper says, can you make a video about top 10 metro cities to do Uber and Lyft 2024? Yeah, I'll do that next week when I have a little more time. I'll go through. I'll do some research and figuring out where the top 10 cities are, and then I'll show people I'm not in the top 10. But it was fun. I'm glad I got to spend time with you guys. I'm here every week starting at 4 p.m. The first thing I do is I share my earnings. If you missed the live stream, that's okay. I always chop up the videos and I post videos daily at 5 p.m. So, always jump on YouTube at 5 p.m. Thumbs up this live stream if you appreciated it. If you learned something, make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you guys next week or in the comments of the videos that I post daily. And I will, if you got my spreadsheet through Patreon or whatever, I'll make sure I approve you for the spreadsheet today, like as soon as I stop this. Peace.